region's security. Ethiopia says it is determined to, quote, curb the threat posed by the Tigray People's Liberation Front. The Tigrayan forces claim they've made territorial gains in the neighbouring Amhara region in northern Ethiopia. Now, at the end of June, the central government declared a unilateral ceasefire, a stunning about-face in the country's devastating 8-month civil war that unleashed dire hunger on the people of Tigray. And you're seeing their World Food Programme trucks, which are clearly designed to be in the area to feed people who the UN describe as in famine-like conditions. And I'm talking about at least 350,000 in famine-like conditions and millions more going hungry. My next guest travelled to the region during the information blackout, obtaining this rare footage. Remarkable images shot for the New York Times that you are seeing here. And combat photographer and author Finbar O'Reilly joining me now. And these images, these pictures that you shot that our viewers are seeing now, Finbar, are truly remarkable. Describe for in your words, if you will, what you found and what these images reflect.
Yeah, so I can't see the images, but I think it's the ones of the prisoners of war being marched
Correct.
through the city of Mekelle, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so that day was, several days after the Tigrayan forces had retaken the regional capital of Mekelle, and initially there'd been huge celebrations that the government forces had left and that the Tigrayan fighters had moved back into the city, and then several days after that, I was out driving, having a look around, and I just saw this massive column of prisoners of war who I'd initially encountered in the mountains 7 days earlier when the Tigrayan forces were winning the battles against the Ethiopian troops. And they had told us they'd captured several thousand. We visited the camp where these prisoners were being held, but I didn't know that they were going to be marched into town on that particular day. And I just saw this column that stretched for more than a mile of several thousand. We were told 7,100 on that day. It may have been closer to 6,000. It's not entirely sure. But initially, it was the Tigrayan fighters escorting them. They'd been walking for more than a day from the mountains. And as they got into the center of town, more and more of the population crowded onto the roads, onto the roadside, and were cheering the Tigrayan fighters and jeering the Ethiopian troops whose eyes were downcast they were looking very defeated at that particular time. But there was a sense of joy, relief, and a venting of frustration. The population was shouting not slogans, but shouting against the Ethiopian soldiers, some of them saying that these are the ones who attacked us, who killed our families, who raped our women. And the Tigrayan fighters were keeping some of the crowd away from the prisoners. And it was something that I've been covering conflicts for decades, and I've never seen a spectacle quite like this. It was remarkable.
Mm. And these images are really, truly remarkable, and shot at a time of an information blackout, of course. What was your sense on the ground? The federal government says that they have called this ceasefire. What is the situation on the ground? Just describe specifically, aside from these POWs that you see, these thousands of Ethiopian troops being, as you say, jeered by Tigrayans who were applauding their own forces. How would you describe the situation on the ground?
Well, we were there at a pivotal moment in this conflict. For 8 months, the Tigrayan forces had appeared, they suffered heavy losses at the beginning of the conflict 8 months ago, and they kind of retreated to their mountain hideouts, regrouped, and they had a massive kind of recruitment campaign that was driven largely by the population, the popular support from villages, from families, and the youth, really, who saw these many atrocities that have been reported, massacres, mass rape committed by the Eritrean forces who are allied with the Ethiopian forces. And there was really a sort of an uprising of support for the Tigrayan leadership. And this, as we've seen in Afghanistan, it's very difficult for an army, no matter how powerful, and Ethiopia is considered to have one of the more powerful armies in Africa. Even a powerful army can can have a very difficult time trying to defeat a guerrilla force that has popular support on the ground. And we happened to end up there just the day after elections that were held last month, and very quickly the tide turned. It was a very rapid shift of the Tigrayan forces gaining the upper hand. While we were in an area controlled by the Tigrayan forces on June 23rd, we happened to be there as they shot down an Ethiopian government plane, and that may have been a turning point that signified a victory was just around the corner for them. And it was several days later that the Ethiopian forces did indeed pull out of Mekele, and they had clearly suffered a series of battlefield losses to the Tigrayan forces, and that was illustrated by the number of POWs that were prisoners that were captured from the Ethiopian army, as well as battlefields that we saw.
Well, clearly there is no political solution no solution on the ground as far as the military is concerned. According to some of CNN's sources on the ground, there is this sense of troops being marshalled in the Amhara areas and beyond, foreboding some big battles ahead. Did you see or witness anything that might support that notion when you were there?
So certainly, Tigray is a large region, and now what the Tigrayan forces are trying to do is consolidate their control across that region. They got control of Mekele and the mountains around, but the area that you're talking about is to the west of Tigray, in the direction of Sudan, and that is a highly disputed area in terms of the land. Who claims the right to it? So the Amhara ethnic group claims that is their land. The Tigrayans claim that is theirs. So there is indeed what looks like a fight brewing there, the Tigrayans have said that they will continue to fight to push out the Eritreans to the north, who are allied with the Ethiopian government. They've already pushed them out of the south, and certainly it would appear that there could be clashes and major battles ahead in the contested area where the Amhara militias have really pushed out a lot of the Tigrayan civilians who were in that area with a view to, and that's where the allegations of ethnic cleansing come in. But this is really a disputed area in terms of who owns the land, who has the right to the land.
In the past couple of weeks, the Associated Press posted photos and quotes from a young female child soldier in Tigray. These subsequently ran in the New York Times, not in your piece, I hasten to add. And in response, in a statement provided to CNN, Ethiopia's government spokesman said, and I quote, "There is a deafening silence by the international media to call out a spade and hold to account the TPLF group, the exploitation of young children for political purposes and use as a human shield in active combat, remaining unaddressed by media entities that have been following in minute detail every aspect of Ethiopia's rule of law operations." And that beckons great inquiry. I just wonder, do those pictures that were seen reflect what you saw on the ground? Did you witness children being used as soldiers?
So yeah, this is obviously, whenever there's a conflict like this, there's going to be, both sides will want a narrative told that reflects their position on it. And certainly, yeah, I saw in the areas where I was, I did see children carrying weapons. I did not see children engaged in fighting. We didn't see active combat. But yes, I have posted pictures showing that. And as we know, the recruitment of child soldiers is a war crime under the International Criminal Court. So these things exist. Whether they were fighting or not, I cannot say. I didn't see that with my own eyes. I can only report what I witnessed myself. But there are, young soldiers on. I saw very young Ethiopian soldiers as well, and I can't say whether they're children or not. People look very young, certainly in areas where there's malnourishment, that's possible too. So I don't know the specific ages of people I saw, but I did see children who appeared to be very young carrying weapons, but they were not right by the front lines, but I did see this kind of thing on multiple occasions, yes.
Very briefly, and finally, what is your sense, just of having been on the ground and witnessing what you did, of where this country is headed at present?
It is a hugely complicated situation for
Mm.
the country. And, the Tigrayan leadership has said that they will push as far as necessary to expel the forces that they say have been committing all these atrocities. And that could include going as far as Asmara in Eritrea, a neighboring country. So the thing is now Tigray is blockaded largely in terms of there's no communication there's no phone network, there's no internet, there's very little movement of people and supplies even for the UN and for humanitarian assistance to these hundreds of thousands you said are, as you pointed out, are suffering from hunger. So the people that I spoke to there, it was never, from what I understood from the people I spoke to, that Tigrayans didn't want independence necessarily. That wasn't something they went in seeking. But the wounds that have now been inflicted on them, are the psychological and physical wounds, are so deep and so painful that many people I spoke to there said it would be difficult for them to go back to being part of Ethiopia as it was before. So what is not clear is whether there can be a political solution for Tigray to remain as part of the country that it's been, or whether this could be leading to other things, as we saw with the war between Eritrea when it separated from Ethiopia decades ago. So that's not clear, but certainly this is not a conflict that is over now and doesn't appear to be ending anytime soon.
It's been a pleasure having you on, sir. Great to get your analysis and insight, having been on the ground so recently, and fascinating to see the images that you shot while you were there. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. As